During the Father's Day party, my daughter stood in front of 30 guests and said, "Dad, apologize to my husband right now, or you will no longer be welcome in this family, and the child will not be allowed to see his grandfather anymore." The entire backyard fell into suffocating silence. That man. He was smiling. I said nothing and quietly walked away. They thought they had won. They thought they had everything under control. But they had no idea that in that very moment, they had already determined the price they would have to pay. Thank you for being here with me. Before we continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments so we can connect across places and stories. Also, please note some details are shaped for storytelling and reflection. Any resemblance may be coincidental, but the message is something worth thinking about for yourself. The Omega sat on my nightstand, the way it had every night for the past 40 years, a 1985 Seamaster, with a face the color of burnt caramel, the second hand ticking soft as a whisper. I woke at 5:30, same as always, and reached for it out of habit before I remembered today I wasn't supposed to wear it. Today I was supposed to keep it safe in its wooden box tucked away in my dresser, waiting for the day Tyler turned 18 and I could press it into his palm the way my father had pressed it into mine. Father's Day, June 2024. 65 years on this earth, and this was the first one without Margaret to tell me I was overthinking the potato salad. I sat up joints, protesting the way they do when you've spent 35 years on your knees pulling wire through tight spaces, and looked out the window. Cedar Park was still caught in that early morning hush, the kind where you can hear a sprinkler 3 houses down, and the mockingbirds haven't started their racket yet. The sky was that pale, clean blue. You only get in Texas before the heat sets in, before the air turns to soup, and you start wondering why anyone ever settled here in the first place. I padded downstairs bare feet on cool tile and started the coffee. The house felt too big. It had felt that way since Margaret passed 4 years ago. Like all the spaces she used to fill with her laugh and her clutter and her habit of leaving half-read paperbacks on every flat surface had just stayed empty. I'd thought about moving into one of those neat little townhouses over in Round Rock, where you don't have to mow your own lawn. But then I'd think about Tyler running through the backyard chasing fireflies in the summer, and I'd put it off another year. The coffee maker gurgled and hissed. I pulled my favorite mug from the cabinet, the one that said, "World's okayest electrician, a gag gift from the crew 5 Christmases ago," and poured it to the brim. Black, no sugar. Margaret used to say I drank it like I was punishing myself. Maybe I was. I had a party to throw. By 6 a.m., I was in the backyard hauling the old Weber grill out of the shed and checking the propane. The plan was simple: ribs, brisket, sausage links, corn on the cob, and enough sides to feed a small army. Arthur had promised to bring his famous jalapeno cornbread. The Williams couple next door, Ted and Martha, good people, been my neighbors for 22 years, said they'd bring a watermelon and some of those store-bought cookies that everyone pretends are homemade. Emily, my younger daughter, was handling dessert, and Nicole. I stopped one hand on the grill lid. Nicole, 34 years old, and I could still see her at 7, all skinny legs and scraped knees, trailing after me on job sites because she wanted to help Daddy fix the lights. So I'd called her my little apprentice, my shadow, my princess. That was before Trevor, 2 years. That's how long it had been since she'd brought him home for Thanksgiving, all smiles and nerves, introducing him as the one, Trevor Hayes. Smooth-talking, 2 white teeth, handshakes that lasted a beat too long. He joined Brennan Electrical 6 months later as business development consultant, a title I still didn't fully understand. Nicole said he was helping modernize our systems. I said I'd been running the company for 35 years without systems, and we'd done just fine. But I'd signed the papers anyway, because she'd asked, because she was my daughter, because Margaret wasn't there to tell me to slow down and read the fine print. I shook my head and flipped open the grill. Enough. It was Father's Day. I wasn't going to spend it chewing on regrets. By 8, the meat was prepped, and marinating, the folding tables were set up under the oak tree, and I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when I heard tires on gravel. Too early. The party didn't start until 11. I walked around the side of the house and saw Nicole's silver SUV parked in the driveway. She stepped out, first sunglasses covering half her face even though the sun was barely up. Then Trevor in a polo shirt, so aggressively lime green it hurt to look at. He was wearing something on his wrist that caught the light. My stomach dropped. The Omega. I must have left the box out yesterday when I was showing Emily. Must have forgotten to lock the dresser. And now Trevor was wearing it like it was his, like it was some accessory he'd picked up at a department store. "Morning, Charles." He called, grinning wide. I didn't answer. I watched Nicole avoid my eyes, watched the way she touched his elbow like she was steering him, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. "We wanted to get here early," Nicole said, her voice too bright. "Help set up." "I've got it handled," I said. We insist," Trevor said, and brushed past me into the backyard. Nicole lingered for half a second, opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, then followed him. I stood there in the driveway watching them go and felt the first prickle of something I couldn't name yet. Something wrong. By 11, the yard was full. Arthur showed up first, same as always, 70 years old, and still built like a linebacker, carrying his cornbread in a cast-iron skillet and a 6-pack of Shiner Bock under one arm. We'd been friends since high school, 40 years of Sundays watching football, 40 years of him telling me I was too stubborn for my own good. "You look like hell," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. Good to see you too, Arthur." Ted and Martha arrived next, Martha fussing over the folding chairs, and Ted making a beeline for the grill to critique my technique. Then Emily pulled up in her beat-up Honda Tyler, bouncing in the back seat like he'd had 3 espressos for breakfast. My grandson, 7 years old, gap-toothed, wearing a t-shirt with a cartoon dinosaur on it. He exploded out of the car and sprinted across the lawn, and I barely had time to brace before he hit me like a freight train. Grandpa, Mom said you're making ribs." I laughed, scooping him up even though my back screamed in protest. "That's right, buddy. Best ribs in Travis County. Can I help?" "You bet." He wriggled down and grabbed my hand, dragging me toward the grill. Emily followed, carrying a Tupperware tower of brownies, smiling that quiet smile that reminded me so much of Margaret. It hurt. "Hey, Dad," she said softly. "Hey, sweetheart." She kissed my cheek and set the brownies on the table, then glanced over at Nicole and Trevor, who were standing by the oak tree, heads bent close, whispering. Her smile faded. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Fine," I lied. Tyler tugged on my hand. "Grandpa," I looked down. He was staring up at me with those wide brown eyes, Margaret's eyes, serious in the way only kids can be. "Yeah, bud. Do you like being a grandpa?" I opened my mouth to answer. Of course I did, more than anything, but before I could get the words out, I caught sight of Trevor over Tyler's shoulder. He was watching us, watching me, and he was smiling. Not the kind of smile you give someone at a party. The kind of smile that says, "I know something you don't." Cold, sharp, wrong. I felt Tyler's hand in mine, small and warm and trusting, and something in my gut twisted. "Oh yeah, buddy," I said quietly, not looking away from Trevor. "I do," but even as I said it, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go very, very wrong. The ribs were perfect. I'd been working the grill for 2 hours straight, basting and turning, watching the meat take on that deep mahogany glaze that made people forget their manners and start hovering with empty plates. The brisket was resting under foil, the sausages were sizzling, and the corn was just starting to char at the edges. 30 people scattered across my backyard. Neighbors, a few guys from the crew family, and the hum of conversation was exactly what a Father's Day should sound like. Arthur was holding court by the cooler, telling some story that had Ted Williams laughing so hard he had to sit down. Emily was helping Tyler build a tower out of cornbread squares, both of them giggling when it collapsed. For a moment I let myself believe everything was fine. Then Nicole stood up. She was halfway across the yard near the oak tree where we'd strung up the old rope swing Tyler loved. She picked up her wine glass white wine, something expensive Trevor had brought, and tapped it with a fork. Once. Twice. The sharp ting-ting-ting cut through the noise like a blade. Conversations died. Heads turned. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" Her voice was too loud, too bright. The kind of bright that comes from a place of nerves, not joy. I set down my tongs and wiped my hands on my apron, feeling that cold thing from this morning settle back into my chest. "I just want to take a moment." Nicole continued, smiling too wide, to talk about my dad. A few people clapped politely. I saw Arthur frown his beer halfway to his lips. Nicole's smile didn't reach her eyes. My dad has always been a strong personality. He built Brennan Electrical from nothing. 35 years of hard work. She paused, and I saw Trevor standing behind her, arms crossed, that same cold smile from earlier. But sometimes strong personalities can be difficult. The applause had stopped. People were glancing at each other, now confused. "Nicole, I started, but she talked over me. Dad, I need you to do something for me. For all of us." She gestured at Trevor. "I need you to apologize to my husband." Silence. I blinked. "What?" "You heard me." Her voice cracked just a little. "You've disrespected Trevor for 2 years, undermined him at work, made him feel like he doesn't belong in this family. And I can't—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "I can't keep choosing between you and him. I felt like I'd been sucker punched." "Nicole, I don't know what you're talking about." "You do." Trevor stepped forward, and I saw a few people shift uncomfortably. "You've questioned every decision I've made at the company, refused to let me implement basic improvements, made jokes about my ideas in front of the crew. That's not—" I stopped. Had I maybe I'd been resistant. Maybe I'd made a comment or two. But disrespectful, Trevor, if I ever made you feel— "It's too late for that," Nicole cut in. Her hands were shaking. "Dad, I need you to apologize to him, right now, in front of everyone." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I didn't recognize. Desperation, maybe. Or fear. "And if I don't," she flinched, "then you're no longer welcome in this family. And the kids—" Her voice broke. "The kids won't be seeing their grandfather anymore." The yard had gone dead silent. I could hear a cardinal singing somewhere incongruous and bright. I could hear Tyler behind me starting to sniffle. "Nicole," Emily said quietly, standing up. "This isn't the time. Stay out of this, Emily." I felt the world tilt. 30 pairs of eyes on me. Arthur had set down his beer, his face unreadable. Ted Williams was staring at his shoes. Martha had her hand over her mouth. And Tyler, my Tyler, was crying. Soft, confused little hiccups, like he didn't understand what was happening, but knew it was bad. "Nicole," I said carefully, "we can talk about this inside, Amina." "No." She lifted her chin. "You apologize now, or we're done." I opened my mouth, closed it. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know what I'd done. Didn't know how we'd gotten here. And then Trevor smiled. It was the same smile from this morning. Cold, satisfied. And I realized with a sick lurch that this was planned. This whole thing. The wine glass. The speech. The audience. Nicole. I said slowly, "What's really going on here?" She looked away. "I already told you." "Then tell me this." I kept my voice level even though my hands were shaking. "When you asked me to sign that succession planning document 6 months ago, Was it really about planning? Her face went pale. Because you said it was just paperwork. You said it was so you could make small decisions when I was on vacation. You said I stopped my throat closing up. You said it was to help me, Nicole. It was, she whispered. Then why? I asked. Are you telling me now that you own 51% of my company? A collective inhale. Arthur stood up. Emily's face went white. That's, Nicole faltered. That's not, it's exactly what you did. Trevor's voice was smooth, triumphant. The document was clear, Charles. You signed over majority ownership. It's legal. It's done. I stared at him, then at Nicole. You lied to me. I didn't. She was crying now, mascara running. Dad, you were so tired. You kept saying you wanted to retire. I thought, you thought you'd take it. No, I thought I was helping. I turned away from her, looked down at the grill, at the ribs going cold, at the perfect Father's Day I'd tried to build. And then I saw it. The watch on Trevor's wrist, catching the sunlight. The Omega. My father's watch. The one I'd been keeping for Tyler. Where did you get that? My voice came out flat. Trevor glanced down, feigning surprise. This Nicole gave it to me. Said it was a family heirloom. It was. He raised an eyebrow. Past tense. I looked at Nicole. She wouldn't meet my eyes. It was supposed to go to Tyler, I said quietly. On his 18th birthday. Well, Trevor said, still smiling, things change. Something in me went very still, very quiet. I pulled off my apron, folded it carefully, set it on the table next to the brownies Emily had brought. Emily reached for me. I shook my head. Didn't trust myself to speak. Charles, wait. Arthur started forward. I walked past him, past the guests who parted like water, past the oak tree and the rope swing and the folding chairs and the paper plates and all the things I'd set up to make this day good. I went inside, grabbed my keys off the hook by the door, came back out. Nicole was standing in the middle of the yard sobbing. Dad, please. I didn't look at her, didn't look at any of them. I got in my truck, started the engine and backed out of the driveway. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing there, one hand reaching out like she could pull me back. Her face was a mess of tears and ruined makeup. And for a second, just a second, she looked like the little girl who used to trail after me on job sites, asking 1,000 questions, wanting to help Daddy fix the lights. Then I turned the corner and she was gone. Arthur's house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac in Round Rock, a modest ranch style with a porch light that had been on since before I pulled into the driveway. I didn't remember deciding to come here. Didn't remember the 25-minute drive, the turns I must have made, the stoplights I must have run or obeyed. One moment I was backing out of my driveway, and the next I was standing on Arthur's doorstep, with my hand raised to knock the sun slanting low and golden through the live oaks. It was 3 p.m. The door opened before I could touch it. Arthur stood there in his usual weekend uniform, faded jeans, a University of Texas t-shirt with a hole near the collar, bare feet. He looked at me for a long moment, taking in whatever he saw on my face, and then stepped aside. Come on in, Charles. No questions, no surprise. Just those 4 words and the steady weight of his hand on my shoulder as I walked past him into the cool dimness of his living room. I'd been in this house 1,000 times over the past 40 years, watched football games on that sagging couch, helped him install the ceiling fan that was now turning lazy circles overhead, knew which floorboards creaked and where he kept the good coffee. It smelled the same as it always did, old wood lemon furniture polish, and the faint, burnt sugar scent of the pipe tobacco he'd quit smoking 15 years ago, but still kept in a jar on the mantel. Arthur didn't say anything, just pointed me toward the couch and disappeared into the kitchen. I heard the clink of glass, the quiet glug of liquid being poured. He came back with 2 tumblers of whiskey. Neat. No ice. Thanks, I said hoarsely. My voice sounded like someone else's. He sat down in the armchair across from me, the one with the duct tape holding the armrest together, and took a sip. Waited. So I told him, all of it. The party, Nicole's speech, the ultimatum, Trevor's accusations, the 51%, the succession planning document I'd signed 6 months ago, thinking I was just giving my daughter a little more authority, a little more say, because she'd asked so sweetly, and I'd been tired, and she was my daughter. The watch on Trevor's wrist. Tyler crying. The way Nicole had reached for me as I drove away. Arthur listened without interrupting. Didn't offer platitudes or advice. Just sat there nursing his whiskey, his weathered face unreadable in the lamplight. When I finished, the silence stretched out between us like something physical. Finally, Arthur set down his glass. "You're not alone in this, Charles." 4 words. That was all. But something in my chest loosened just a little. "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "You will." He leaned back the chair, creaking under his weight. "But not tonight. Tonight you just sit here and breathe." So I did. My phone started buzzing around 4:30. I'd left it in my pocket, forgotten about it, until it began vibrating against my leg like an angry hornet. I pulled it out, saw the screen light up with Nicole's name, and felt my stomach clench. 1 missed call, 2, 5, 10. I set the phone face down on the coffee table and watched it dance across the wood with each new buzz. Arthur raised an eyebrow. "You gonna answer that?" "No." He nodded. Didn't push. By 6 o'clock, the count had climbed to 47 missed calls from Nicole, 12 from Trevor, and a string of text messages that I couldn't bring myself to read except for one. From Emily, "Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the message. Opened it. 2 years ago, Nicole asked me to lie to you. She said she needed money for an emergency, and she wanted me to tell you it was for me that I needed help with rent. I said no. I told her to be honest with you. But she got the money somehow anyway, didn't she, Dad? I tried to warn you about her. About Trevor. I'm so sorry. I read it 3 times. Then I set the phone down very carefully, like it might shatter if I moved too fast, and pressed the heels of my hands into my eyes. "Charles," Arthur's voice quiet and concerned. "Well, she's been lying to me for 2 years. My voice cracked. "At least 2 years, maybe longer, and I didn't see it." "You saw what she wanted you to see," Arthur said. "That's not on you." "But it was, wasn't it? I was her father. I should have known. Should have seen the signs. Should have..." The grief hit me like a fist to the sternum. I doubled over, a sound ripping out of my throat that didn't sound human, and the tears came in hot, choking waves. I couldn't stop them. Couldn't breathe around them. Arthur was beside me in an instant, his hand on my back solid and steady, saying nothing, because there was nothing to say. I cried for Nicole. For the little girl who used to sit on my workbench handing me tools and asking why wires had colors. For the teenager who'd helped me build the rope swing in the backyard and insisted we test it together, both of us laughing when it held. For the woman she'd become, or maybe the woman she'd always been, and I'd just refused to see it. I cried for Margaret, who would have known what to do, who would have seen this coming, who would have sat me down and told me in her calm, unshakable way that love doesn't mean letting people hurt you. And I cried for myself because somewhere along the line, I'd lost my daughter, and I didn't even know when. By the time I could breathe again, it was full dark outside. Arthur had turned on a lamp in the corner, soft and low. He'd refilled my whiskey without asking, and he was still there sitting on the arm of the couch, waiting. "You can stay here as long as you need," he said quietly. I nodded, scrubbing at my face with the back of my hand. "Thanks. Guest room's yours, but I'm betting you won't sleep much tonight." He was right. Arthur eventually retreated to his bedroom around 11, but not before pulling a pillow and a blanket out of the hallway closet and dropping them on the couch. Just in case you need to move around, he said. Then he paused in the doorway. Charles, whatever you decide to do tomorrow, I'm with you. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The house settled into silence. I sat on the couch, my phone face down beside me, and tried not to think about the fact that Nicole was probably still calling. Still texting. Still what? Panicking, regretting. Or just trying to make sure I didn't do exactly what I was about to do. At 2 a.m, I picked up the phone, scrolled past the 59 missed calls, past the texts from Nicole. Dad, please call me back. I can explain, you're overreacting. This is ridiculous. Past Trevor's cold, clipped messages. You're making a mistake. Call your daughter. I opened my photos instead, found the album labeled Nicole, and there she was. 8 years old, missing her 2 front teeth, wearing denim overalls covered in paint stains. She was sitting on my shoulders at some job site, arms wrapped around my head, grinning so wide it looked like her face might split in half. I remembered that day. She'd insisted on coming with me even though it was a Saturday. Spent the whole afternoon helping by handing me the wrong tools and asking questions faster than I could answer them. She'd been so happy. When had that changed? I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. Then I closed the app, opened my contacts, and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in 5 years. Philip Hartman, business attorney. The man who'd helped me incorporate Brennan Electrical 30 years ago, who'd walked me through contracts and disputes and won near bankruptcy back in the 90s. I didn't call him, not at 2 a.m, but I typed out a message, thumb slow and deliberate, on the screen. Philip, it's Charles Brennan. I need your help. Can we meet tomorrow? It's urgent. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I set the phone down, lay back on Arthur's couch, and closed my eyes. Tomorrow I would fight. Tonight I just needed to survive. Arthur was already up when I came downstairs Monday morning, the smell of strong coffee filling his kitchen like a promise. He didn't ask how I'd slept. The answer was written all over my face, just poured me a mug and set it on the table next to a plate of toast. You hear back from your lawyer? He asked. I checked my phone. Philip had replied at 7 a.m, can meet at 10. Bring any documents you have. Yeah, I said. 10 o'clock. Arthur nodded, pushed the toast toward me. Eat something first. You're no good to anyone if you pass out in the man's office. So I ate, even though the bread tasted like cardboard, and drank the coffee and tried not to think about the 53 new missed calls that had accumulated overnight. At 8, I called Philip from Arthur's porch. He picked up on the second ring. Charles, I got your message. Thanks for seeing me on short notice. 30 years, Charles. You don't need to thank me. His voice was the same as I remembered, calm, measured, the kind of voice that made you believe problems had solutions. What's going on? I gave him the short version. Nicole. The ultimatum. The 51%. The document I'd signed 6 months ago. There was a long pause. Bring everything you have, Philip said finally. Every piece of paper she gave you. Emails, texts, anything. I don't have much. Bring what you have. I'll see you at 10. Philip's office was downtown in one of those old buildings on Congress Avenue that had been there since before Austin decided it wanted to be the next Silicon Valley. The kind of place with creaky wooden floors and tall windows and walls lined with law books that probably hadn't been opened since the 90s, but gave the room a certain gravitas. Philip himself was waiting in his office when I arrived, 62 years old, gray hair, cropped military short, reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. He stood when I came in, shook my hand with the firm grip of a man who'd spent his career negotiating deals and settling disputes, and gestured me toward the chair across from his desk. You look terrible, he said bluntly. Thanks, Philip. You always know what to say. He smiled just a little. Sit, show me what you've got. I pulled out my phone, opened the photos I'd taken yesterday of the document Nicole had given me 6 months ago. I'd found it in my filing cabinet at home, tucked between tax returns and insurance policies, innocuously labeled Succession Planning. Brennan Electrical. Philip studied the screen, his face giving nothing away. Then he pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. "Walk me through what she told you when you signed this," he said. I leaned back, trying to remember. It was November, around Thanksgiving. She said she wanted to have more authority to make decisions when I wasn't around, small stuff, like approving purchases under a certain amount, signing off on schedules. She said it would make things run smoother. Did she mention ownership? No. Percentage? No. Transferring control of the company? Absolutely not. I felt my jaw tighten. She said it was planning for the future. She said, I stopped the memory crystallizing. She said, Dad, just sign this so I can make small decisions when you're on vacation. It'll take the pressure off you. Philip wrote that down verbatim. Then he looked up. Charles, this isn't a succession planning document. This is a transfer of ownership. 51% of Brennan Electrical transferred to Nicole Brennan, effective immediately upon your signature. The room tilted. But she said, I know what she said. Philip's voice was gentle but firm. And that's the problem. This document is legally binding. You signed it, it was notarized, and unless we can prove otherwise, it's valid. Prove otherwise, I echoed. He set down his pen. Fraud in the inducement. If we can demonstrate that Nicole deliberately misrepresented what this document was, that she lied to you about its contents, then we can argue the contract should be voided, because your consent was obtained through deception. I stared at him. Can we do that? Maybe. He leaned back, fingers steepled. It depends on what we can prove. Did she email you anything about this text I shook my head. It was all in person. Any witnesses? No, just us. Philip frowned. That makes it harder. It's your word against hers. But he tapped the legal pad. If she's done this before, if there's a pattern of deception, that helps. And if we can find evidence that she's been planning this takeover for a while, that helps too. What kind of evidence? Financial records, emails between her and Trevor, anything that shows intent. He paused. Charles, I need you to go to the office, today. Take photos of everything you can, files, computers, records. Don't take anything physical, just document it. And whatever you do, don't confront her. Don't give her a reason to claim you're being hostile or unstable. She already thinks I'm unstable, I muttered. She told 30 people I disrespected her husband. Then don't give her more ammunition. Philip's gaze was steady. This is going to be a fight, Charles. And fights are won by people who keep their heads. I nodded slowly, took a breath. Okay. He stood, extending his hand again. Go to the office, document everything, then call me tonight and tell me what you found. I shook his hand. Thanks, Philip. Don't thank me yet, he said. We've got a long road ahead. The drive to Georgetown took 30 minutes, but it felt like hours. Brennan Electrical had been based out of the same building for 20 years, a low-slung commercial space off Interstate 35, with a small showroom in front, and a warehouse and workshop in back. I'd signed the lease when Nicole was in middle school. Had painted the exterior myself, that industrial beige that looked boring but hid dirt. Had installed every light fixture in the parking lot. I pulled into the lot at 2 in the afternoon, killed the engine, and just sat there for a minute. The building looked the same. Same beige walls. Same logo, a stylized lightning bolt with Brennan Electrical in bold letters underneath. But there was something new, a sign. Hanging just below the logo, crisp and professional, like it had been printed yesterday. Under new management, Nicole Brennan, Operations Director. I stared at it. Felt something cold and sharp twist in my chest. She'd done it. Made it official. Publicly claimed the company I'd built with my own hands, my own sweat, my own 35 years. My hands were shaking when I reached for the door handle. I took a breath. Another. Don't confront her, Philip had said. Just document. Right. I opened the door and stepped out into the parking lot, the Texas sun beating down on my shoulders, and walked toward the building I wasn't sure was mine anymore. My key didn't fit. I stood at the front door of Brennan Electrical. The door I'd walked through 10,000 times. The door I'd painted and repainted, and once kicked in when the lock jammed back in 2003 and my key turned halfway, then stopped. Wouldn't budge. They'd changed the locks. I tried again, slower this time, thinking maybe I was using the wrong key, even though I knew I wasn't. Same result. The deadbolt didn't recognize me anymore. I stood there for a long moment, the afternoon heat pressing down like a weight, and felt something crack inside my chest. Then I knocked. Footsteps. The sound of the deadbolt sliding back the new one, the one that didn't know my key, and the door opened. Trevor stood there, still wearing that lime green polo, my father's watch glinting on his wrist. He looked at me the way you'd look at a door-to-door salesman you weren't interested in. Polite disinterest with a thin veneer of pity. "Charles," he said. "Not Charles, come in. Not hey, we need to talk. Just my name, flat and final. I'm here to pick up some files," I said, keeping my voice level. "I'm afraid that's not possible. Excuse me." Trevor shifted his weight, blocking the doorway more deliberately. "Nicole, as majority owner, has voted to restrict your access to the premises until the current family situation is resolved." I stared at him. "You're joking." "I'm not." He pulled out his phone, swiped a few times, then turned the screen toward me. There was an email dated this morning with Nicole's name at the top. "Effective immediately. Charles Brennan is prohibited from entering company property without prior written authorization." "That's my company," I said quietly. "It was." Trevor pocketed his phone. "Now it's 51% hers, and as majority owner, she has the authority to make executive decisions." He smiled just a little, including this one. The heat made my head swim. Or maybe it wasn't the heat. "Trevor, I need to get my things. You can submit a written request for any personal items. We'll review it and get back to you within 5 to 7 business days." Ship 2, I stopped, took a breath. "You're serious?" "Completely." He started to close the door. "Have a good day, Charles." I put my hand on the door, not hard, just enough to keep it from closing. "Let me talk to Nicole. She's not available." "Trevor." "Mr. Brennan." His voice went cold. "Remove your hand or I'll call the authorities and report you for trespassing." I pulled my hand back like I'd been burned. Trevor gave me one last smile, satisfied, triumphant, and shut the door in my face. The deadbolt slid home with a sound like a gunshot. I stood there staring at the closed door, my own reflection faint in the tinted glass. 65 years old, locked out of the building I'd built. By my daughter's husband, wearing my father's watch. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. The new sign, the door, the lock. I opened the voice memo app and recorded a short description, date, time, location, what Trevor had just said. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone twice, but I got it done. Document everything Philip had said. Don't give them ammunition. So I documented. And then I stood there in the parking lot under the punishing sun, trying to figure out what to do next. That's when I heard the door, not the front door. The back one, the employee entrance that opened onto the warehouse. It creaked, had needed oil for 2 years, and I turned just in time to see someone slip out. Evelyn Sanders, 60 years old, silver hair, cut short, wearing the same sensible flats and cardigan she'd worn every day for the past 25 years. She'd been with Brennan Electrical since before Nicole was born, started as a receptionist, and worked her way up to office manager, kept the schedules handled. The invoicing, knew every client by name. She saw me and froze. Then glanced back at the building, checking to see if anyone was watching, and hurried across the parking lot. "Mr. Charles," she whispered when she reached me. She was breathing hard like she'd run. "I saw what happened. I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault, Evelyn. Here." She pressed something into my hand, a small USB drive, black plastic, warm from being in her pocket. "This is everything. 3 years of financial records, spreadsheets, transaction logs, invoices. I made a backup last week because..." She stopped, glanced over her shoulder again. "Because something didn't feel right." I stared at the drive. "What do you mean, the numbers?" Her voice dropped even lower. "There are discrepancies. Money that doesn't add up. I tried to tell you, Mr. Brennan, I sent you emails, but Nicole, she intercepted them. Said she'd handle it. Said you didn't need to worry about the details." Evelyn's eyes were bright with tears. "But it's your company. You deserve to know." "Evelyn, I have to go." She squeezed my hand. "Be careful, Mr. Brennan, please." Then she turned and hurried back to the building, slipping through the door before anyone could see. I stood there holding the USB drive, feeling its small weight like an anchor. I drove back to Arthur's house in a daze. The roads blurred. The stoplights seemed arbitrary. I must have obeyed them. I didn't get pulled over, didn't cause an accident, but I don't remember making any conscious decisions. My hands moved on the steering wheel. My foot pressed the gas and brake. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a voice kept repeating the same sentence over and over. "You built that company. You built it. 35 years. I'd been 29 when I started Brennan Electrical, fresh off a 5-year apprenticeship with a beat-up truck and a toolbox, and a wife who believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. I'd worked 18-hour days, pulled wire in 100-degree heat and 20-degree cold, underbid jobs just to get my name out there. Slowly, painfully built a reputation. Brennan gets it done. Brennan does it right. And now I couldn't even walk through the front door. Arthur was on the porch when I pulled up, a book in his lap, a beer sweating on the side table. He took one look at my face and set the book down. "That bad?" he asked. I handed him the USB drive. "What's this?" "Evidence," I said. "I think." We didn't open it right away. Arthur made dinner burgers on the grill, the irony not lost on either of us, and we ate in silence on the porch, watching the sky turn orange and then purple and then black. My phone buzzed a few more times. I ignored it. Around 8 we went inside. Arthur's laptop was old Dell that probably predated the Obama administration, but it worked. I plugged in the USB drive, waited for it to load, and opened the first file. It was a spreadsheet. Columns of numbers, dates, transaction codes. The kind of thing I used to skim through once a quarter, trusting Nicole to handle the details, because she'd always been good with numbers, and I'd always been better with my hands. I scrolled down and down. 3 years of data meticulously logged, and then I saw it. A cell highlighted in red. A formula that had flagged an inconsistency. Discrepancy, $180,000 unaccounted for in operating account. I stared at the screen. Arthur leaned over my shoulder. "Is that what I think it is?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think someone's been stealing from me." We didn't sleep. Arthur made a pot of coffee around 9, strong enough to strip paint, and we settled in at his kitchen table with the laptop between us, the blue glow of the screen, the only light in the room. The spreadsheet Evelyn had given me was massive. 3 years of transactions, hundreds of line items, color-coded tabs for different accounts, and buried in all that data a trail. "Here," I said, pointing at a cell. "June 7th last year, $3,200. Memo says, equipment repair, Anderson Supply." Arthur squinted at the screen. "You use Anderson Supply?" "Yeah, for parts, but not $3,200 worth." I opened a new tab, pulled up Anderson's website, and dialed their main line. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. A woman older, her voice rough from years of answering phones. "Anderson Supply, how can I help you?" Hi, this is Charles Brennan from Brennan Electrical. I'm trying to verify a payment we made last June, $3,200 for equipment repair. A pause. The sound of keys clicking. Let me check. Brennan Electrical, you said. Yes, ma'am. More clicking. Then, Mr. Brennan, our records show your last payment was in March of last year. $1,800 for conduit and wire. Nothing in June. My stomach dropped. You're sure? Positive. Would you like me to email you a statement? Yes, please. I gave her my email, thanked her, and hung up. Arthur was watching me. Fake, unspoken, fake. I moved to the next line. August 14th, $4,100. Vendor payment, Crestview Mechanical. Called them, same story. No record of payment. September 9th, $2,800. Consulting fee, M. Torres. I didn't even know who M. Torres was. By the time I'd called 8 vendors, 5 had said the same thing. We never received that payment. The other 3 were legitimate, real invoices, real work. But 5 out of 8 were ghosts. Money that had gone somewhere, but not where the memo said. It was past midnight when Arthur leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. How many transactions total? I scrolled through the flagged cells. 47. 47? He let out a low whistle. Over how long? 18 months, roughly. I did the math in my head. 10 transactions a year on average. Just under $10,000 each time. Arthur frowned. That's deliberate. What do you mean? Banks report transactions over 10 grand to the IRS. It's federal law, part of anti-money laundering regulations. If someone deposits or withdraws more than that in cash, the bank files a currency transaction report. He tapped the screen. Your son-in-law stayed under the threshold. Every single time. I stared at the numbers. He was right. The highest single transaction was $6,500. Most were between $1,200 and $5,000. Small enough to fly under the radar. Large enough to add up. How he knew what he was doing, I said quietly. Yeah. Arthur's voice was grim. This wasn't a mistake, Charles. This was systematic. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not yet. Just a dull, heavy certainty. Trevor had been stealing from me for a year and a half, and Nicole, whether she'd known from the start or figured it out later, had helped him hide it. Around 2 a.m, I pushed the laptop away and put my head in my hands. You okay? Arthur asked. No. My voice came out hoarse. I'm not. He waited. 4 years. I said finally. 4 years since Margaret passed, and for 4 years I've been... What sleepwalking, I handed everything to Nicole. The books, the accounts, the checks. She'd bring me a stack of invoices, I'd sign them, and I stopped, my throat closing up. I never looked. I just trusted her. Charles, I should have known. I lifted my head, looked at him. She's my daughter. I should have seen it. Arthur's expression was hard to read. You saw what she wanted you to see. That's not your fault. Isn't it? I laughed, bitter and sharp. I built that company from nothing, Arthur. 35 years of watching every dollar, every contract, every hire. And then Margaret died, and I just stopped. Stopped paying attention. Stopped caring. I thought if I gave Nicole more responsibility, it would take the pressure off me. I thought... My voice cracked. I thought I was helping her. You were grieving. That's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. Arthur agreed. It's a reason. There's a difference. He leaned forward, his voice steady. Trevor saw an opening and he took it. Nicole either helped him or turned a blind eye. But you, Charles, you're not the villain here. I wanted to believe him. But sitting there at 2 a.m, staring at 47 lines of theft, it was hard to see it that way. I called Philip at 8 a.m. the moment I figured he'd be in his office. He answered on the third ring. Charles, tell me you've got something. I've got something. I gave him the rundown: 47 transactions, 18 months, $180,000, fake vendor invoices, systematic withdrawals under $10,000 each. Philip was silent for a long moment. Then, that's embezzlement. Textbook. Can we prove it? With this, yes. But we're going to need a forensic accountant, someone who can analyze the records, testify in court if it comes to that. I know a woman, Carolyn Fisher. She's expensive, but she's the best. I'll call her today. Do it. Charles, you need to brace yourself. If we take this to court, it's going to get ugly. Nicole's going to have to answer for this. And if Trevor's behind it, he is. Then we're talking criminal charges. Fraud, theft, possibly more depending on what Carolyn finds. I closed my eyes, took a breath. I don't care. Do it. All right. A pause. How are you holding up? I'm fine, I lied. Charles, I'm fine, Philip. Just get me that accountant. I hung up before he could argue. The email came at 9:30. I was pouring my fourth cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. A notification from my bank: important account update. I opened it expecting another statement or some routine security alert. Instead, I got this. Dear Mr. Brennan, we are writing to inform you that your personal checking account ending in 4392 has been frozen effective immediately due to a power of attorney authorization submitted by Ms. Nicole Brennan. Per the POA, Ms. Brennan has been granted full authority over your financial accounts during a period of incapacity. If you believe this action has been taken in error, please contact our customer service department at your earliest convenience. I read it twice, then a third time. Arthur, I said. He looked up from his coffee. What? I handed him the phone. He read the email, his face going very still. Then he looked at me. She can't do that. Can she? I don't know. My hands were shaking again. I never gave her power of attorney. I never signed anything like that. Arthur's jaw tightened. Then it's forged. Or she lied. Again. I took the phone back, stared at the screen. She's cutting me off, Arthur. From the company. From my own bank account. She's trying to... I stopped, the word catching in my throat. Trying to what? I looked at him, and I felt something crack open inside me, not grief this time, but something sharper. Colder. She's trying to erase me. The ATM was outside a coffee shop on Main Street in Round Rock, one of those standalone kiosks tucked between parking spaces. I needed cash, just $20 for breakfast. Maybe a decent cup of coffee that wasn't Arthur's industrial strength brew. I slid my card into the slot, punched in my PIN, and selected withdrawal $40. The screen blinked. Transaction declined. Please contact your financial institution. I stared at it. Tried again. Same message. I hit check balance instead. Available balance $347.82. $347. In an account that should have had closer to $15,000. My hands went cold. I called the bank from Arthur's kitchen, the customer service number printed on the back of my debit card. Waited through 4 minutes of hold music, something instrumental and grating, before a woman picked up. First National Bank, this is Sandra. How can I help you today? Hi, Sandra. This is Charles Brennan, account ending in 4392. I just tried to withdraw cash and got declined, but my balance shows $347. Can you tell me what's going on? Keys clicking. A pause. Mr. Brennan, your account was flagged 8 months ago under a power of attorney authorization. The account is currently under restricted access. Restricted access? Yes, sir. A POA was filed by Ms. Nicole Brennan in October of last year, citing health concerns. She's been granted full authority over the account. You'll need to contact her directly if you'd like to make a withdrawal. I felt the room tilt. I never signed a power of attorney. Sir, the document on file is notarized. If you believe it's fraudulent, you'll need to dispute it through legal channels. Well, legal channels? I repeated, my voice flat. Yes, sir. Is there anything else I can help you with today? I hung up without answering. Philip didn't sound surprised when I called him 10 minutes later. She filed a POA, he asked. 8 months ago. Says I have health concerns. I laughed, sharp and bitter. I'm 65, Philip. I've got a bad knee and I need reading glasses. That's it. Do you have a copy of the document? The bank says it's notarized. I'm going to request a copy this morning. I'm good. Don't wait. And Charles. He paused. I know someone who can help. Linda Anderson. She's a forensic document examiner. If that signature's fake, she'll prove it. How soon can we see her? Let me make a call. I'll text you. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Linda can see you at 2 p.m. Her office is on West 6th. I'll meet you there. Linda Anderson's office was in a narrow building downtown, sandwiched between a law firm and a vintage clothing shop. The sign on the door was small and professional L, Anderson Forensic Document Analysis. Inside, the space looked more like a lab than an office, white walls, metal shelves lined with binders, a long table covered in magnifying lamps and microscopes. Linda herself was in her mid-50s, gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, wearing frameless glasses and a no-nonsense expression. She shook my hand firmly when Philip introduced us. Mr. Brennan, I understand you have a disputed power of attorney. That's putting it mildly, I said. I handed her the document. I'd picked it up from the bank that morning, 3 pages neatly printed with my signature at the bottom of the second page. Except it wasn't my signature. It looked like my signature the way a photocopy looks like the original, but something about it was wrong. Too perfect. Too clean. Linda set the document on her table under a large magnifying lamp and pulled on a pair of latex gloves. She studied it for a long moment without speaking, then looked up. Do you have samples of your authentic signature? Philip had thought ahead. He handed her a folder, copies of contracts I'd signed over the past 5 years, checks, invoices, anything with my name scrawled at the bottom. 12 samples in total. Linda arranged them in a neat row beside the POA, then leaned over the lamp, a jeweler's loupe in one hand. The room went silent, except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. After what felt like an hour, but was probably closer to 10 minutes, Linda straightened and removed the loupe. Oh, this signature is forged, she said. I exhaled a sound somewhere between relief and rage. You're sure? Positive. She gestured to the POA. The line weight is inconsistent. Whoever did this tried to replicate your signature, but they applied uneven pressure. See here. She pointed to the tail of the B in Brennan. Your authentic signatures have a distinct upward flick at the end. This one tapers off. It's subtle, but it's there. Could someone have traced it? Philip asked. Possibly. But there's more. Linda switched off the magnifying lamp and turned on a different one, ultraviolet. The POA glowed faintly under the light, and she pointed to a section near the signature. This area shows signs of digital manipulation. The ink density doesn't match the rest of the document. My guess. Someone scanned one of your real signatures, cleaned it up in editing software, and digitally placed it onto this form before printing. Is that common? I asked. More common than you'd think. It's not sophisticated, but it's effective, especially if no one's looking closely. She turned off the UV light and pulled off her gloves. I can write up a full report for you. It'll include my analysis, comparison images, and my professional opinion that this signature is fraudulent. Should hold up in court. Philip nodded. How soon can you have it ready? 2 days. Make it 1. I'll pay the rush fee. Linda smiled faintly. I'll have it to you by tomorrow afternoon. We left Linda's office just after 3. Philip walked me to my truck, his expression grim. I'm filing an emergency motion with the court tonight, he said. Freeze all accounts, void the POA, and request a hearing. With Linda's report, we've got a strong case. How long until we get a hearing? A week, maybe 2. Judge Kowalski's docket is packed, but this qualifies as urgent. He clapped me on the shoulder. Hang in there, Charles. We're getting you your life back. I wanted to believe him. But standing there in the parking lot with $347 to my name and a forged signature hanging over my head, it was hard to feel optimistic. I borrowed $500 from Arthur that night. He didn't ask why. Just pulled the cash out of his wallet, a mix of 20s and 50s worn soft from use, and pressed it into my hand. You'd do the same for me, he said. I nodded, not trusting my voice. 65 years old, and I was borrowing grocery money from my best friend, because my daughter had locked me out of my own accounts. The humiliation was worse than the fear. Emily called at 8. I almost didn't answer. My phone had been ringing nonstop, mostly Nicole's number, a few blocked calls, but Emily's name made me pick up. Hey, sweetheart, I said. She was crying. Not the quiet kind, full gasping sobs that made my chest tighten. And what's wrong? Dad, her voice cracked. Have you seen it? Seen what? Online. Nicole posted something. Dad, another sob. She's telling everyone you're sick, that you're experiencing cognitive decline, and the family is trying to protect you. The words hit me like a fist. She posted that where? Everywhere. Her personal page, the company account. She made it sound like you're not competent anymore. People are commenting, asking if you're okay, saying they're praying for you. Emily's voice turned sharp. Dad, she's lying. You know that, right? You're fine. I know, Em. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I know. But even as I said it, I understood. This wasn't just about control. It was about narrative. Nicole had filed the POA claiming I had health concerns. Now she was seeding that story publicly, building a case in the court of public opinion. If everyone believed I was incompetent, if clients, vendors, friends all thought I was losing my grip, then the POA didn't look like theft. It looked like a daughter trying to protect her father. She wasn't just trying to erase me. She was trying to rewrite me. Dad, Emily's voice, small and scared. What are we going to do? I looked across the room at Arthur, who was pretending not to listen, and at the $500 on the kitchen table, and at the folder Philip had left me, emergency motion pending hearing, forensic analysis. We fight, I said. We fight and we win. But I wasn't sure I believed it anymore. If you're still here, comment Jang Sem, so I know you're still with me. And if it were you when everything is taken and your dignity is crushed, would you walk away or stay and fight to expose the truth? A quick note, parts ahead are shaped for storytelling and reflection. You can stop here if preferred. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, a handful of benches. The Texas state seal hung behind the judge's bench, faded but official. Philip sat beside me at the plaintiff's table, folders stacked neatly. Across the aisle, Nicole sat with Trevor and their attorney Gerald Foster, mid-50s, wire-rimmed glasses, expensive suit. Nicole wouldn't look at me. Trevor stared straight ahead, jaw tight. Arthur sat in the gallery behind me. I could feel his presence, steady. At 9 a.m., the bailiff stood. All rise. The Honorable Judge Margaret Kowalski presiding. Judge Kowalski was 58, gray hair cut short, black robe crisp. She took her seat, adjusted her reading glasses, and opened the file. This is an emergency hearing in the matter of Charles Brennan versus Nicole Brennan and Trevor Hayes. Mr. Hartman, you filed the motion. Proceed. Philip stood. Thank you, Your Honor. My client has been the victim of systematic fraud. Over 18 months, his daughter and son-in-law forged legal documents, embezzled $180,000 from his company. and attempted to seize control of a business he built over 35 years through deception. Gerald Foster rose. Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is presenting conclusions as established facts. My clients deny all allegations. Judge Kowalski didn't blink. Mr. Foster, you'll have your turn. Sit down. She looked at Philip. Continue. Philip clicked a remote. The screen on the wall lit up with a scanned document the power of attorney Nicole had filed 8 months ago. This POA was submitted to Mr. Brennan's bank last October, claiming he had health concerns and granting his daughter full control of his finances. Problem is, Mr. Brennan never signed it. We have proof. He gestured to the gallery. I'd like to call Linda Anderson to the stand. Linda stood and made her way forward. The bailiff swore her in. Please state your name and occupation for the record, Philip said. Linda Anderson, forensic document examiner, 23 years of experience. Ms. Anderson, did you examine the power of attorney in question? I did. What did you find? Linda's voice was calm, clinical. The signature attributed to Charles Brennan is a forgery. I compared it to 12 authenticated samples of Mr. Brennan's signature from contracts, checks, and legal documents spanning 5 years. The line weight is inconsistent, stroke order doesn't match. An ultraviolet analysis revealed digital manipulation. Someone scanned a real signature and inserted it into this document. The screen changed, showing 2 signatures side by side. Mine from 3 years ago, the POA version. Even I could see the differences. In your professional opinion, Philip asked, is this signature authentic? No, it is not. Gerald Foster stood. Ms. Anderson, isn't it possible Mr. Brennan's handwriting simply changed over time? Pshaw. Handwriting evolves gradually, Linda said evenly. This shows abrupt changes inconsistent with natural aging plus clear digital artifacts. I'm confident this is forged. Foster sat down without another word. Philip called his next witness. Carolyn Fisher. Carolyn was a woman in her late 50s, gray suit, reading glasses on a chain. She took the stand and identified herself as an independent CPA with 30 years of experience in forensic accounting. Ms. Fisher, did you review financial records from Brennan Electrical? I did. 3 years of transaction data, including ledgers and bank statements. What did you discover? 47 transactions over 18 months, totaling $180,000 that appear fraudulent. Each was recorded as a legitimate expense, equipment repair, vendor payments, consulting fees. But when Mr. Brennan contacted 8 listed vendors, 5 confirmed they never received payment. The screen showed a spreadsheet rows highlighted in red. Transaction amounts ranged from $1,200 to $6,500. Carolyn continued. Notably, none exceeded $10,000, the IRS reporting threshold. This suggests deliberate structuring to avoid detection. In my professional opinion, this is embezzlement. Gerald Foster objected. Speculation, Your Honor. Overruled, Judge Kowalski said. If your client filed a POA claiming incapacity while involved in questionable financial activity, that's relevant. Continue, Ms. Fisher. The pattern is systematic and intentional, Carolyn said. Not an accounting error. Fraud. I glanced at Trevor. His face had gone pale, sweat visible on his forehead. Nicole's hands trembled. Gerald Foster stood for his defense. Your Honor, mistakes were made. But this is a family matter, not a criminal conspiracy. Mr. Brennan signed documents willingly. He delegated authority to his daughter because he trusted her. Now he regrets losing control and wants to undo it through litigation. He gestured toward me. Mr. Brennan is 65. He lost his wife 4 years ago. With respect, it's possible he doesn't fully remember. Objection. Philip's voice was sharp. Counsel is implying cognitive decline without medical evidence. Sustained, Judge Kowalski said firmly. Mr. Foster, unless you have documentation supporting that claim, move on. Foster hesitated. No further argument, Your Honor. Judge Kowalski closed her file and folded her hands. Here's what I see. A power of attorney with a forged signature confirmed by a forensic expert. Testimony from a CPA identifying systematic embezzlement. A business ownership transfer the plaintiff claims was obtained through misrepresentation. She looked at Nicole. Ms. Brennan, does your counsel have evidence to refute these findings? Foster whispered to Nicole. She shook her head. No, Your Honor, Foster said. Judge Kowalski picked up her pen. My ruling is as follows. The power of attorney submitted by Nicole Brennan is void effective immediately due to fraudulent signature. The transfer of 51% ownership of Brennan Electrical is suspended pending investigation into fraud in the inducement. Temporary full ownership is restored to Charles Brennan. Personal bank accounts of Nicole Brennan and Trevor Hayes are frozen pending resolution of embezzlement allegations. A restraining order is issued prohibiting Ms. Brennan and Mr. Hayes from contacting Mr. Brennan or entering Brennan Electrical premises without court approval. Finally, this matter is referred to the Travis County District Attorney for criminal investigation. Her gavel came down. One sharp crack. Court adjourned. I stood. The floor tilted. Philip's hand steadied me. You okay? Yeah, but I wasn't. I'd won company accounts, life returned in a legal package. So why did I feel hollow? Arthur waited outside, leaning against the wall. He didn't speak, just walked beside me down the courthouse steps into June sunlight. My truck was across the street. I was halfway there when I heard her. Dad, please. I stopped, turned. Nicole was running toward me, mascara streaking her face, hands reaching. Trevor followed behind, expression unreadable. Dad, I'm so sorry. Her voice broke. I didn't know it would go this far. I never meant. I looked at her. At the woman who used to sit on my shoulders at job sites, who'd forged my signature, who'd let her husband steal from me, who'd tried to erase me. Nicole, I said quietly. Hope flickered in her eyes. I turned and walked to my truck. Behind me, I heard her sob. Heard Trevor's voice, low and urgent. Heard Arthur's steady footsteps. I got in, started the engine, and drove away. I didn't look back. The parking lot was empty except for one car. I pulled into Brennan Electrical just after 2 in the afternoon. The court order folded in my jacket pocket, still warm from where I'd been gripping it during the drive from Austin. The building looked the same as it had 4 days ago. Same beige walls, same logo, same parking spaces marked with fading white paint. But the sign that had read, "Under New Management," was gone. Someone had already taken it down. I parked in my usual spot, the one closest to the front door, that I'd claimed 35 years ago, and never given up. Killed the engine. Took a breath. That's when I saw him. Trevor's car, a silver Lexus, that always looked too expensive for someone who worked at a small electrical contracting firm, was parked 3 spaces down, and Trevor himself was leaning against the hood, arms crossed, waiting. I sat there for a moment, keys still in the ignition, weighing my options. The restraining order was clear: no contact, no approach, no communication. If I got out of this truck and he came toward me, he'd be in violation, which meant I could call the police. Which meant he'd be arrested, which meant Nicole would have one more reason to hate me. I pulled the keys from the ignition and stepped out. Trevor straightened immediately, his jaw tight, his hands balling into fists at his sides. He didn't come closer, stayed exactly where he was, maybe 10 feet away, but his voice carried across the parking lot like a whip crack. You happy now, Charles? I didn't answer, just closed the truck door and started walking toward the building entrance. I'm talking to you, Trevor shouted. You got what you wanted, right? Destroyed your own family. Humiliated your daughter in front of a courtroom full of strangers. Took everything from us. You feel good about that? I stopped, turned to face him. Pulled my phone out of my pocket, opened the voice memo app and hit record. Then I held it up so he could see exactly what I was doing. Trevor's face went red. You're recording me. Are you serious? I didn't say a word. Just stood there, phone raised, waiting. He laughed, sharp and bitter. You're unbelievable. You know that you're a selfish old man who can't stand the idea that someone else might run your precious company better than you ever did. I stayed silent. Let him talk. Let the recording capture every word. Trevor took a step forward, then another. Still maybe 6 feet away, but close enough that I could see the sweat beading on his forehead, the vein pulsing at his temple. You want to know the truth? His voice cracked. You want to know why I took that money? I didn't move. I owe people, Charles. Bad people. $180,000 in debts that I can't pay. And if I don't pay them... He stopped, swallowed hard. If I don't pay them, they're going to hurt me. You understand, they're going to come after me, and I don't know what they'll do, but it won't be pretty. I felt something twist in my chest, but I kept my expression neutral. Kept the phone steady. I made mistakes. Trevor continued, his voice rising. I made bad bets. I thought I could win it back. I thought... He shook his head, almost laughing. But I thought I could fix it before anyone found out. And Nicole, she was just trying to help me. She didn't want to steal from you. She just wanted to save me. The confession hung in the air between us, raw and desperate. I lowered the phone slightly. So you stole from my company to pay off your debts. I borrowed, Trevor snapped. I was going to pay it back. With what? He didn't answer. You forged my signature, I said quietly. You manipulated my daughter into helping you commit fraud. You tried to take everything I built, and now you're standing here telling me it's because you made bad bets. I'm telling you I'm desperate, Trevor shouted. I'm telling you I don't know what else to do. Then you should have asked for help. I did. I asked Nicole, and she... He stopped, looked away. She what? Trevor's jaw worked. She said she'd fix it. She said she'd take care of it. And I let her because I'm a coward and I didn't want to face what I'd done. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I saw something in Trevor that wasn't arrogance or smugness or cold calculation. I saw fear, real bone-deep fear, and I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I turned. Nicole was running across the parking lot from the side street, her face pale, her hair disheveled. She must have been waiting somewhere nearby, watching. She reached Trevor and grabbed his arm, pulling him back. Trevor, stop. Just stop. She turned to me, her eyes red and swollen. Dad, please, please, can we just talk? No, I said. Dad, there's a restraining order, Nicole. He's not supposed to be here. Neither are you. I know. Her voice broke. I know, but I had to, Dad. I'm begging you. Can you forgive us? Can you please just, I'll do anything. Anything to fix this. I'll pay back every cent. I'll work for free. You chose him, I said quietly. Nicole froze. 2 years ago, you chose him. You chose to lie to me. You chose to let him steal from me. You chose to forge my name and try to take my company. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something inside me break all over again. You made your choice, Nicole. Now you have to live with it. Her face crumpled. Dad, please. No. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face, and then her knees gave out. She sank down onto the curb, her hands covering her face, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Trevor stood over her, his expression shifting from desperation to anger. He looked at me, and for a second I thought he might say something else, might apologize, might beg, might try one more time to make me understand. Instead, he spat on the pavement between us. You'll regret this, old man. He said, his voice low and venomous. Then he grabbed Nicole by the arm, pulled her to her feet, and dragged her toward the Lexus. She didn't resist. Just let him lead her. Her sobs muffled against his shoulder. They got in the car. The engine roared to life, and they were gone. I stood there in the parking lot, phone still in my hand, the recording still running. I stopped it, saved it, put the phone back in my pocket. Then I walked to the front door of Brennan Electrical and pushed it open. The office was full. 18 people, electricians, office staff, apprentices, all standing at their desks, all looking at me. For a moment, no one moved. Then Evelyn Sanders started clapping. Slowly, one by one, the rest joined in. Applause filled the small lobby, echoing off the walls, warm and genuine, and meant to be comforting. "Welcome home, Mr. Brennan," Evelyn said, her voice thick with emotion. I nodded, tried to smile. "Thank you." But standing there, surrounded by people who were happy to see me, who'd been loyal when it mattered, who'd risked their jobs to help me, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired. I'd won my company back. I'd won in court. I'd won every battle I'd fought over the past week. But I'd lost my daughter, and no amount of applause could make that feel like winning. Rebecca Marshall's office was on the 8th floor of the Travis County Justice Center, a modern building downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Colorado River. Her desk was neat stacks of case files organized by color-coded tabs, a laptop open to a spreadsheet. Diplomas from UT Law and certifications from the Texas Bar hung in simple black frames on the wall behind her. She was 45, I'd guess, with dark hair pulled back in a professional bun, and the kind of steady, measured gaze that came from 18 years of prosecuting white-collar crime. She'd introduced herself as an assistant district attorney, specializing in fraud and embezzlement cases, and she'd been polite, respectful, and refreshingly direct. "Mr. Brennan," she said, folding her hands on the desk. "Judge Kowalski referred your case to our office after yesterday's hearing. I've reviewed the evidence, the forged power of attorney, the forensic accounting report, the expert testimony. Frankly, it's one of the strongest cases I've seen in years." I nodded, not trusting my voice yet. "With what we have," Rebecca continued, "I'm confident I can secure convictions on multiple counts. For Trevor Hayes, we're looking at embezzlement, forgery, and fraud. Depending on how a jury feels, he could face 5 to 10 years in state prison. For Nicole Brennan as an accessory and co-conspirator, probably 2 to 5 years. The words hit me like a fist. 5 to 10 years. 2 to 5 years. That's a long time, I said quietly. "It is," Rebecca agreed. "But it's proportional to the crime. They stole $180,000 from you over 18 months. They forged legal documents. They attempted to seize control of your business through deception. These aren't minor offenses, Mr. Brennan. They're serious felonies." I looked out the window at the river below, the water moving slow and brown in the midday sun. "Nicole is my daughter." "I know. She's Tyler's mother, my grandson. He's 7 years old." Rebecca's expression softened just slightly. "I know that too. And I understand this isn't an easy decision. That's why I wanted to talk to you before we move forward." "What do you mean?" She leaned back in her chair. "We have options. Full prosecution is one of them. Take this to trial. Let a jury decide, send them both to prison if we win. But there's another path. A plea agreement." "What kind of agreement?" Rebecca pulled a folder from the stack on her desk and opened it. "If Trevor Hayes and Nicole Brennan agree to plead guilty, we can negotiate sentencing terms that hold them accountable without destroying their lives completely. Here's what I'd propose." She slid a typed outline across the desk. I picked it up, scanned the bullet points. "Trevor Hayes," Rebecca said, "would be required to repay the full $180,000 within 90 days. I don't care how he does it. Sells assets, borrows from family, takes out loans. But the money comes back to you in full. He'd also be required to leave Texas within 30 days and prohibited from returning for 5 years. And he'd receive a suspended sentence, 3 years probation. If he violates any term of the agreement, he goes to prison immediately. No second chances. I nodded slowly. And Nicole would be required to resign from Brennan Electrical permanently. She'd make a public apology posted online and delivered in person to your employees. She'd also receive a suspended sentence with 3 years probation. And as part of the agreement, she'd be prohibited from interfering with your visitation rights to your grandson. Minimum 2 visits per month more if you want. I stared at the outline, the words blurring slightly. What if I say no? What if I want them prosecuted fully? Then we go to trial, Rebecca said. And if we win, which I'm confident we will, they both go to prison. Trevor for 5 to 10. Nicole for 2 to 5. Tyler grows up visiting his mother in a correctional facility. She paused. That's your right, Mr. Brennan. And I'll support whatever decision you make, but I want you to understand the full consequences. I set the paper down. Can I have some time to think about it? Of course. Take the weekend. I need an answer by Monday morning. I stood, shook her hand. Thank you. Well, I'm Mr. Brennan, she said as I reached the door. For what it's worth, you're handling this with a lot more grace than most people would. I didn't feel graceful. I just felt tired. Arthur's house was quiet when I got back that evening. He'd made spaghetti his go-to comfort food, and we ate in silence on the porch, watching the sky turn pink and then purple. He didn't ask about the meeting, didn't press, just handed me a beer and let me sit with my thoughts. Around 7, we heard a car pull up. Emily. She got out of her Honda, looking like she'd been crying, her eyes red and swollen, a small manila envelope clutched in both hands. Arthur stood, but she waved him off. I'm okay, she said, though her voice said otherwise. She walked up the porch steps and stopped in front of me. Dad, I need to give you something. I set down my beer. What is it? Mom left this for you. She held out the envelope. It was old, the edges yellowed my name written on the front in Margaret's unmistakable looping handwriting. She gave it to me a few days before she passed away. She told me to keep it safe and only give it to you when you really needed it. Emily's voice cracked. I think now is that time. I took the envelope, my hands suddenly unsteady. Emily, just read it, Dad, please. She kissed my cheek, got back in her car, and drove away before I could say anything else. Arthur looked at me. You want me to give you a minute? No, I said, might stay. I opened the envelope carefully, like it might disintegrate if I wasn't gentle enough. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once, covered in Margaret's handwriting. The ink was slightly faded, but the words were clear. My dearest Charles, if you're reading this, it means Nicole has done something terrible. I don't know what exactly, but I know my daughter. I know she's weak when she loves the wrong person. I know she makes choices with her heart instead of her head, and sometimes those choices hurt the people who love her most. I'm writing this because I won't be there to tell you in person. The doctors say I have maybe 3 months, maybe less, and I need you to hear this while I still have the strength to say it. Nicole is flawed. She's made mistakes. And whatever she's done to hurt you, I'm sure it feels unforgivable right now. But Charles, she's also Tyler's mother. That little boy needs his grandfather. He needs you to teach him how to fix things, how to work with his hands, how to be a good man. But he also needs his mother. He needs her love, her presence, her imperfect, complicated humanity. So I'm asking you, begging you to give Nicole a second chance. Not because she deserves it. Not because what she did was okay. But because Tyler deserves a family. And you, my love, deserve peace. Forgiveness isn't about her. It's about you. It's about letting go of the anger so it doesn't consume you the way this illness is consuming me. I love you, Charles. I've loved you since the day we met, and I'll love you long after I'm gone. Give our daughter a chance. For Tyler. For me. For yourself. Always, Margaret. I read it twice, then a third time. My vision blurred, and I realized I was crying quiet, steady tears that I didn't bother wiping away. Arthur didn't say anything, just sat there solid and present the way he'd been for 40 years. I folded the letter carefully, slipped it back into the envelope, and looked at him. "I know what I have to do," I said. He nodded. "Yeah, I figured you did." The conference room at the district attorney's office was windowless and spare, a long table, 8 chairs, a whiteboard on one wall covered in faded marker from some previous case. Philip sat to my right, a leather folder open in front of him, his expression calm and professional. Across from us, Nicole sat with Trevor and Gerald Foster, their attorney. Nicole's eyes were red-rimmed, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Trevor stared at the table, jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle twitching. At the head of the table, Rebecca Marshall sat with her own stack of files, a legal pad, and the air of someone who'd done this 100 times before. "Let's get started," she said. "Mr. Hartman, your client has agreed to propose a plea agreement in lieu of full prosecution. Please present the terms." Philip nodded and slid a typed document across the table, one copy to Rebecca, one to Gerald Foster. Nicole leaned over to read it, her breath catching audibly. "The terms are as follows." Philip began, his voice steady and measured. "First, Trevor Hayes will repay the full sum of $180,000 to Charles Brennan within 90 days of this agreement's execution. The method of repayment is Mr. Hayes's responsibility, sale of assets, loans from family, liquidation of property, but the funds must be returned in full." Trevor's hands curled into fists on the table. Philip continued. "Trevor Hayes will vacate the state of Texas within 30 days and is prohibited from returning for a period of 5 years. Violation of this term will result in immediate imprisonment." "That's ridiculous," Trevor muttered. Gerald Foster put a hand on his client's arm. "Let him finish." Philip didn't pause. "Third, Nicole Brennan will resign from all positions at Brennan Electrical effective immediately and permanently. She will have no involvement in the company's operations, finances, or decisions going forward." Nicole's face crumpled, but she didn't speak. "Fourth, Nicole Brennan will issue a public apology. This apology will be posted on her social media accounts and delivered in person to the 18 employees of Brennan Electrical. The apology must acknowledge her role in the fraud and embezzlement and take full responsibility for her actions." I watched Nicole's reaction. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks, but she nodded just barely. "Fifth," Philip said, "both Nicole Brennan and Trevor Hayes will accept a suspended sentence of 3 years probation. If either party violates any term of this agreement, any term, they will be immediately remanded to state prison to serve the full sentence for their crimes." Rebecca Marshall looked up from the document. "For the record, those sentences would be 2 to 5 years for Ms. Brennan and 5 to 10 years for Mr. Hayes. The suspended sentence is contingent on full compliance." Trevor's face had gone pale. Finally, Philip said, "Charles Brennan will be granted visitation rights to his grandson Tyler, a minimum of twice per month. Nicole Brennan is prohibited from interfering with these visits in any way. Failure to comply will constitute a violation of probation." Philip set the document down. "Those are the terms. Accept them or Ms. Marshall proceeds with full prosecution." The room went silent. Trevor pushed his chair back abruptly, the legs scraping loudly against the linoleum floor. "This is insane. You're trying to destroy us. Mr. Hayes." Gerald Foster started, but Trevor talked over him. "No. This is vindictive. He's using the legal system to punish us because he's bitter and—" "Sit down, Mr. Hayes." Rebecca Marshall's voice cut through the room like a blade. She didn't raise her volume, didn't change her tone. She just looked at him with the kind of cold authority that came from 18 years of prosecuting criminals who thought they were smarter than the law. Trevor froze. "If you walk out of this room," Rebecca said evenly, "I will file charges for theft by deception and forgery." Each charge carries a maximum sentence of 10 years under Texas Penal Code. That's 20 years total. I have expert testimony, forensic evidence, and a paper trail that a first-year law student could follow. You will be convicted. You will go to prison. And when you get out, if you get out before you're old and gray, you'll have a felony record that will follow you for the rest of your life. She leaned forward slightly. Or you can sit down, sign this agreement, and walk out of here today with a chance to rebuild your life. Your choice. Trevor stood there for another moment, breathing hard. Then he looked at Gerald Foster. His attorney leaned in, whispered something urgent and low. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw Trevor's expression shift from anger to fear to something that looked like resignation. He sat down. Rebecca looked at Nicole. Ms. Brennan, do you understand the terms of this agreement? Nicole nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes. And do you accept them voluntarily without coercion? Yes. She looked across the table at me, her eyes pleading. Thank you, Dad. I thank you. I didn't respond, just watched as she picked up the pen Rebecca handed her. Her fingers trembling so badly she almost dropped it. She signed her name at the bottom of the document, slow and shaky, and then pushed it across to Trevor. He stared at it like it was a death sentence. Mr. Hayes, Rebecca said. Trevor grabbed the pen. For a second I thought he might throw it. Instead, he signed quick, angry strokes and slammed the pen down on the table so hard it bounced. Rebecca collected the signed documents, made copies, and handed one to Philip. I'll submit this to Judge Kowalski for approval. We're scheduled for a hearing at 3 this afternoon. The courtroom was the same one we'd been in a week ago. Judge Kowalski sat at the bench, her reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewing the plea agreement with the same methodical care she'd shown during the emergency hearing. Ms. Brennan, Mr. Hayes, she said, looking up. You've both signed this agreement. Do you understand that by doing so, you are waiving your right to a trial and admitting guilt to the charges outlined here? Yes, Your Honor, Nicole said. Yes, Trevor muttered. Do you understand the terms of your probation? That any violation will result in immediate imprisonment? Yes, Your Honor, they said in unison. Judge Kowalski made a note on her legal pad. Then this plea agreement is approved. The terms are binding and enforceable. Mr. Hayes, you have 30 days to vacate Texas. Ms. Brennan, you have 72 hours to submit your resignation and issue your public apology. Failure to comply will result in a warrant for your arrest. Her gavel came down. Court adjourned. Outside, the late afternoon sun was harsh and bright. I walked down the courthouse steps, Philip beside me, and tried to feel something. Relief, satisfaction, closure. Anything. I just felt hollow. Charles. I turned. Nicole was running toward me, Trevor nowhere in sight. She stopped a few feet away, breathless and crying. Dad. I know I don't deserve this. I know I... Her voice broke. I just want you to know that I love you. I love you so much. And I'm going to spend every day trying to make this right. I swear. I looked at her. At my daughter. At the woman who'd lied to me, stolen from me, tried to erase me. At the woman who was also Tyler's mother. Margaret's daughter. The little girl who used to hand me tools and ask 1,000 questions. Nicole, I said quietly. She looked up, hope flickering in her red, swollen eyes. You have 5 years to prove it. I turned and walked to my truck. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. Behind me, I heard her sobbing, softer this time, less desperate. Maybe she understood. Maybe she didn't. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. I'd given her the chance Margaret asked me to give. What she did with it was up to her. July in Texas was brutal heat that hit you like a wall the moment you stepped outside, air so thick it felt like breathing through a wet towel. I pulled into the Brennan Electrical parking lot just after 7 in the morning, the sun already climbing, and sat in my truck for a moment before going in. The building looked the same. Same beige walls, same logo, same parking spaces. But I wasn't the same man who'd built this place 35 years ago. I wasn't even the same man who'd walked out of here 3 weeks ago hollow and victorious. I was 65 years old. I'd lost my daughter, my wife, and nearly my life's work. And now I had to figure out how to put the pieces back together. I grabbed my coffee and walked inside. The conference room was full by 8. 18 employees, electricians, office staff. The apprentices who'd been with us less than a year, all crammed around the table or leaning against the walls. Evelyn Sanders sat in the front row, her hands folded in her lap, her expression calm and steady. A few others looked nervous. Most just looked tired. I stood at the head of the table and took a breath. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "I know the past month has been hard. Hell, it's been a nightmare, and I need to say something before we move forward." I paused, choosing my words carefully. I made mistakes. Big ones. I trusted people without verifying what they were doing. I handed over control because I was tired, because I was grieving, because I thought I was helping someone I loved. And in doing that, I put all of you at risk. Your jobs, your livelihoods, your trust in this company, I jeopardized all of it because I was blind. The room was silent. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening. I'm sorry I didn't protect you the way I should have. And I'm asking for a chance to earn your trust back. Evelyn stood. "Mr. Brennan, you don't need to apologize to us." "Yes, I do." "No." Her voice was firm. "You protected us when it mattered. You fought for us. You got the company back and you made sure we all still have jobs. We trust you. We've always trusted you." She looked around the room. A few people nodded. One of the younger guys, Mike, I think his name was, said, "She's right, boss. We're with you." I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief exactly, just gratitude. "And thank you," I said quietly. "That means more than you know." Over the next 2 weeks, I made changes. First, I called a meeting with the senior staff and laid out a new vision. Brennan Electrical was going to get smaller. We were going to focus on quality, not quantity. No more chasing every contract that came through the door. No more trying to grow just for the sake of growth. "Not we're downsizing to 12, I said. "Core team only. If anyone wants to move on, I'll write you a good reference and give you fair severance. No hard feelings. But the people who stay, we're going to build something sustainable. Something I can manage without losing my mind." 6 people took the severance. 3 of them had been planning to leave anyway. One was moving to Dallas, another was starting his own business. The other 3 just wanted a fresh start away from the drama. I didn't blame them. That left 12 of us, and it felt right. I hired a new apprentice in mid-July. His name was Danny Miller, 19 years old, fresh out of a community college program, eager to the point of being annoying. He reminded me of myself at that age, all questions and energy, and a willingness to do whatever it took to learn the trade. I took him out on a residential job, his second week, a rewiring project, in an old house in Round Rock. We spent the morning pulling wire through tight crawl spaces, and I showed him how to strip insulation without nicking the copper, how to read a circuit diagram, how to test a connection before closing up the wall. "Why do we test it twice?" he asked, holding the multimeter like it might bite him. "Because once isn't enough," I said. "You test it when you wire it. You test it again before you close the wall. And if you're smart, you test it a 3rd time after the inspector leaves. Trust nothing. Verify everything." He grinned. "Got it, Mr. Brennan." I clapped him on the shoulder. "Call me Charles. And welcome to Brennan Electrical." Teaching him reminded me why I'd started this company in the first place. Not for the money, not for the prestige, but because I loved the work. I loved taking something broken and making it right. Maybe that's what I was trying to do now. Not just with the company, with myself. Nicole came to the office on a Thursday afternoon unannounced. I was in the back warehouse reorganizing inventory when Evelyn found me. "Mr. Brennan, your daughter's here. She says she needs to talk to the staff." I wiped my hands on my jeans. "She following through on the apology?" "Looks like it." I followed Evelyn to the front office. Nicole stood near the door, her face pale, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She'd posted the apology online a week ago. I hadn't read it, didn't want to, but this was the in-person part. The hard part. Can I talk to everyone?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Go ahead," I said. Evelyn called the staff into the lobby. 12 people gathered, some curious, some wary. Nicole stood in front of them, looking like she might collapse. "I'm here to apologize," she said, her voice barely audible. "I lied to you. I helped my husband steal from this company. I betrayed my father, and I betrayed all of you. And I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Evelyn stepped forward. "I forgive you, Nicole." Nicole's face crumpled and she started crying. Evelyn hugged her, not warmly but not coldly either. Just practical. Human. A few others nodded, mumbled forgiveness. One or two turned and walked away without a word. I didn't blame them either. Nicole left 10 minutes later, her face streaked with tears, her shoulders hunched. She didn't ask to talk to me. Didn't even look at me. Good. This wasn't about me. At the end of July, my phone buzzed with a bank notification. Deposit received $60,000 from Trevor Hayes. I stared at the screen. $60,000. 1/3 of what he owed me. $120,000 left to go, due by mid-September. He was following through. Whether out of fear or genuine remorse, I didn't know. Didn't care. The money was there. That was enough. That evening, I sat alone in my office, the building quiet around me. Everyone had gone home. The lights were off except for the desk lamp, casting a small circle of yellow light across the scattered paperwork. I picked up the framed photo of Margaret that I kept on my desk. Taken 20 years ago, maybe more. Her hair dark, her smile bright, standing in front of the house we'd bought when Emily was born. "You were right," I said aloud, my voice rough. She needed a chance. Margaret didn't answer, of course. But I could almost hear her voice in my head, the way she used to talk to me when I was overthinking something. "See, you did the right thing, Charles. Now stop brooding and go home." I smiled just a little and set the photo back on the desk. The company was smaller now, quieter, but it was mine again. And this time I wasn't building it for anyone else. I was building it for me, and maybe that was enough. I pulled into the parking lot at Brushy Creek Park, just before 3:20 minutes early, because I couldn't sit still at home any longer. The park was busy, families spread out on picnic blankets, kids shrieking on the playground, the creek running low and sluggish in the summer heat. I found a spot under a live oak and killed the engine. 6 weeks. 6 weeks since I'd seen Tyler. Since the Father's Day party that had blown my life apart. Since I'd driven away from my own backyard with my daughter's voice calling after me and my grandson crying in the background. I checked my phone. No messages. I was early. Nicole wasn't due for another 15 minutes. I got out of the truck and walked toward the creek, trying to calm the knot in my stomach. The plea agreement guaranteed me visitation twice a month, minimum supervised, if Nicole wanted, but visitation nonetheless. This was the first one. And I had no idea what to expect. Would Tyler even remember me? Would he be angry? Scared? Would Nicole have told him some version of events that made me the villain? I didn't know. And not knowing was eating me alive. At 3:15 I saw them. Nicole's car pulled into the lot, a different car than before, something smaller and older, probably all she could afford now. She got out first, and I felt a jolt of surprise. She looked thin, too thin, dark circles under her eyes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a t-shirt that hung loose on her frame. She opened the back door and Tyler climbed out. My chest tightened. He was wearing a dinosaur t-shirt, different from the one he'd had on at the party, but the same style, and his hair was a little longer, curling at the edges. He looked around the parking lot, uncertain, until Nicole pointed toward me, and then he saw me. "Grandpa," he took off running. I barely had time to brace myself before he hit me like a freight train. His arms wrapping around my waist, his face buried in my shirt. And he was crying, not sad crying, but the kind of crying that comes from relief so overwhelming it has nowhere else to go. "Grandpa," he sobbed, "I missed you so much. I missed you so much." I dropped to my knees and pulled him close, my own eyes burning. "I missed you too, buddy. I missed you every single day. Mom said you had to go away for a while," he said, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "She said you were busy, but I knew you wouldn't leave me. I knew you'd come back." I looked over his head at Nicole, who was standing by the car, her arms wrapped around herself. She met my eyes for just a second, then looked away. "I didn't leave you, Tyler," I said, pulling back so I could see his face. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." He nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "Okay." Nicole walked over slowly, her hands shoved into her pockets. "The court order says I can stay for 5 minutes to make sure everything's okay," she said quietly. "After that, I'll be over there." She gestured toward a bench 30 feet away near the playground. "If you need me, just call." "We'll be fine," I said. She nodded, looked at Tyler one more time, something unreadable passing across her face, and walked away. Tyler and I walked down the trail that followed the creek, his hand in mine, his voice filling the silence with 1,000 questions. "Where did you go, Grandpa? Were you on a trip? Did you go somewhere far away? Can I come next time?" I kept my answers simple. I had some things I needed to take care of, grown-up stuff. But I'm back now, and we're going to see each other a lot more, okay? "How much more?" "At least twice a month, maybe more." "That's not enough," he said seriously. "I want to see you every day." I smiled despite myself. "Me too, bud." We stopped at the little snack shack near the playground, and I bought him an ice cream cone chocolate, his favorite. We sat on a stone bench overlooking the creek, and he ate it slowly, savoring every bite, his legs swinging back and forth. "Grandpa," he said after a while. "Yeah, are you still mad at Mom?" The question hit me harder than I expected. I looked down at him, at his serious little face, and tried to figure out how to answer. "No," I said finally. "I'm not mad at her anymore." "Then why don't you live with us?" "It's complicated, Tyler. Your mom and I, we had some disagreements. Big ones. And we need some time apart to figure things out." "But you're not mad." "I'm not mad," I said. I'm just sad. But that's not your fault, okay? None of this is your fault. And no matter what happens between me and your mom, I'm always going to be here for you. Always." He nodded, licking chocolate off his fingers. "Okay." We sat in silence for a moment, watching a family of ducks paddle past in the creek. "I ran to," Tyler said again. "Yeah, bud." "What happened to the watch?" I blinked. "What watch?" "No, the fancy one. The one you showed me at the party. You said it was really old, and you were going to give it to me someday." "The Omega." I'd almost forgotten about it, or tried to. The last time I'd seen it, Trevor had been wearing it smug and arrogant, like it was his right. But I'd gotten it back. After the court hearing, I'd gone home, retrieved it from where I'd locked it away, and put it back in its wooden box. Safe. Waiting. "I still have it," I said, "and I'm still going to give it to you." Really. When you turn 18, it's yours, just like I promised." Tyler's face lit up. "That's a long time from now." "Yeah, but it'll be worth the wait. Trust me." He grinned and leaned against me, his head resting on my arm. "I trust you, Grandpa." We stayed at the park for an hour and a half. I pushed him on the swings. We skipped rocks in the creek. We sat in the grass, And he told me about school, about his friends, about the book he was reading. And the whole time Nicole sat on that bench 30 feet away, watching. I glanced over once and saw her wiping her eyes. She didn't come closer, didn't interrupt. Just sat there alone watching her son laugh with the man she'd tried to take everything from. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired. When it was time to go, Tyler hugged me again, his arms tight around my neck. "Grandpa, can we go fishing next time?" he asked. "Fishing?" I smiled. "Yeah, bud. I think we can do that. Promise." "I promise." He pulled back his face, serious. "And you'll come back. You won't go away again." "I'll come back, I promise." He nodded, satisfied, and ran over to Nicole. She stood her hands in her pockets and gave me a small, sad smile. Then she mouthed 2 words. "Thank you," I nodded. They walked back to the car together, Tyler chattering the whole way, and I stood there in the parking lot watching them go. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. Mozart's Coffee sat on the edge of Lake Austin, all glass walls, an exposed brick, the kind of place where people brought laptops and pretended to work while staring at the water. I arrived early, ordered a black coffee, and took a table by the window. It was December. 6 months since the court hearing. 6 months since the plea deal. 6 months since I'd sat across from Nicole and told her she had 5 years to prove herself. This was the first time she'd asked to meet. I watched the door nerves I didn't want to admit tightening in my chest. Part of me wondered if she'd show up. Part of me wondered if I wanted her to. At 2 o'clock, she walked in. She looked different. Thinner, yes, I'd noticed that at the park when she'd brought Tyler. But it was more than that. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup, wearing jeans and a plain sweater. She looked like someone who'd stopped trying to impress anyone and started just trying to survive. She saw me, hesitated, then walked over. "Hi, Dad," she said quietly. "Nicole." She sat down, her hands folded on the table, and for a moment neither of us spoke. "Thank you for meeting me," she said finally. "I know you didn't have to. You asked. I'm here." She nodded, swallowed. "I wanted to give you an update. On everything." "All right." She took a breath. "Trevor paid back the full amount. 180,000. The last payment came through in September." I nodded. I'd known that the bank had notified me, but I let her tell me anyway. "He's gone," she continued. "Left Texas in July. He's in Arizona now. We don't talk. And the 2 of you, divorced. It was finalized in November." She looked down at her hands. "I should have done it years ago, before any of this happened. But Her voice cracked. "I thought he loved me, Dad. I really thought he did." "Did he?" "No." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "He loved the money. He loved what our family could give him. He loved the idea of not having to work for anything. But me..." She shook her head. "No, I don't think he ever did." I took a sip of my coffee, let her sit with that for a moment. "Do you regret it?" I asked. She looked up, her eyes red. "Every day. Every single day I wake up and wish I could go back and do it all differently. I wish I'd listened to Emily. I wish I'd been honest with you. I wish..." She stopped, wiping at her eyes. "I wish I'd been smarter, stronger, better." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. Set it on the table between us. Nicole stared at it. "What is this?" "Open it." She did, slowly. Inside was a stack of bills, 50 $100 bills, and a handwritten note. She unfolded the note, read it, and her face crumpled. "Dad, read it out loud," I said. Her voice shook. "This is an advance. Use it to go back to school, accounting, business, whatever you want. Build a new life. Don't see this as kindness. This is a debt I owe you. I didn't teach you about values before I gave you power. That was my failure, not just yours. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. Dad, I can't. Yes, you can. I leaned forward. You made mistakes, Nicole. Big ones. But I made mistakes too. I handed you responsibility without teaching you how to handle it. I trusted you blindly instead of teaching you to be trustworthy. So take the money. Go back to school. Prove to yourself that you can build something honest. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand, squeezing it so hard it hurt. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. I squeezed back just once, then let go. Part 2. 1 year. June came around again. Father's Day. 1 year since the party that had shattered everything. I'd moved since then, sold the house in Cedar Park, with all its memories, and bought a small townhouse in Round Rock. 2 bedrooms, a patch of yard, barely big enough for a grill, but it was mine, and it was quiet. Tyler had insisted on throwing me a party. Emily showed up first, carrying a casserole and a grocery bag full of drinks. Arthur arrived next, then Evelyn Sanders and 2 of the guys from the crew. Nicole wasn't there. She'd asked if I wanted her to stay away, give me space, and I'd said yes. Not out of cruelty, just I needed this day to be simple. Tyler had made a card. Handmade construction paper folded in half the front, covered in crayon drawings of tools and lightning bolts. Inside, in his careful second-grade handwriting, "World's Best, Grandpa." I stared at it for a long time, my throat tight, and when I looked up, everyone was watching me. You okay, Dad? Emily asked softly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Tyler threw his arms around my waist. Do you like it, Grandpa? I love it, Bud, I managed. It's perfect. We ate on the patio, burgers and hot dogs, potato salad, Emily's casserole that was somehow both too salty and too bland. Arthur told terrible jokes. Evelyn updated me on the crew. Tyler ran around the yard with a plastic lightsaber battling invisible enemies. It wasn't the party I'd planned a year ago. It was smaller, quieter, but it was real. That evening, after everyone had gone home and Tyler was asleep on the couch, my phone rang. Nicole. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Hi, Dad. Her voice was soft. I just wanted to call and say, I love you, and thank you for not giving up on Tyler, for letting him be part of your life. I looked over at Tyler curled up on the couch with his card clutched in one hand. You're my daughter too, Nicole, I said quietly. I never gave up on you either. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I know. And I'm trying, Dad. I really am. I know you are. Good night, Dad. Good night, Nicole. I hung up and sat there in the dim light of the living room, listening to Tyler's soft breathing. My phone buzzed. A text from Nicole. Rest well, Dad. Tyler wants you to teach him fishing tomorrow. I'll drop him off at 7 a.m. I smiled just a little and typed back, sounds good. Then I set the phone down, leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. 1 year ago, I'd lost everything. Tonight, I had my grandson asleep on my couch, my daughter texting me about fishing trips, and a handmade card that said I was the best. It wasn't everything, but maybe it was enough. I gripped the steering wheel as I turned off I-35 into North Austin. The dashboard clock read 6:47 p.m. 18 months ago on that Father's Day morning in Cedar Park. I never imagined I'd be driving to my daughter's home again for a holiday meal. The invitation had come 3 days earlier. Dad, can you come for Christmas dinner? Just the 4 of us? I'd really like that. I'd stared at my phone before typing back, I'll be there. The address led me to a modest apartment complex off Metric Boulevard, a plain 2-story building with exterior staircases and white Christmas lights sagging across the second-floor railing. I parked beneath a live oak and sat for a moment, hands sweating. Nicole opened the door before I could knock. She wore a cream sweater and jeans, her hair in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry except a thin silver bracelet. Hi, Dad, she said quietly. Hi, sweetheart. I walked into a small living room that smelled like roasted chicken and sage. The furniture was second-hand, but tidy, a tan couch, a wooden coffee table, a bookshelf with Tyler's school books, and framed photos. Emily stood at the stove in the open kitchen, stirring a pot. She glanced over and smiled. "Hey, Charles." "Hey, Em," Tyler burst from the hallway. "Grandpa." He wrapped his arms around my waist. I rested a hand on his head, breathing in strawberry shampoo. He was 8.5 now, taller, but the hug was the same. "Missed you, buddy," I murmured. "Missed you too. Come see my room. I hung up the fishing rod you gave me." "In a minute, Ty," Nicole said gently. "Let Grandpa sit down first." I settled on the couch. Nicole sat across from me, hands folded. For a moment we were silent, except for Emily's spoon clinking against the pot. Thank you for coming," Nicole said. "I wasn't sure you would." I said I would. "I know," she shook her head. "I'm just glad you're here." Emily brought over a bowl of mashed potatoes and set it on the small dining table pushed against the wall. She returned with a platter of roast chicken, golden and steaming, then a green salad. Simple, honest food. "Okay, everyone," Emily called. "Let's eat." We gathered around the table. Tyler insisted I sit at the head. Nicole said a short, halting grace, something she hadn't done since Margaret died, and we passed the dishes. The chicken was tender, seasoned with rosemary and lemon. The potatoes were creamy. "This is really good, Nicole," I said. She ducked her head, blushing faintly. "Thanks. I've been learning to cook again." Tyler launched into a story about his second-grade teacher, Mrs. Callahan, and the gingerbread house chaos in class, frosting everywhere, one kid eating half the candy. Emily laughed. Nicole smiled, and for a few minutes it felt almost normal. Then Tyler looked at me, fork hovering. "Grandpa, Mom says you're not mad at her anymore. Is that true?" The table went quiet. Nicole's fork clinked softly. I set down my own fork. "I'm not mad, Ty. Your mom made some mistakes, and so did I. We're working it out. It takes time. But you still love her, right?" I glanced at Nicole. Her eyes were wet. "Yeah, buddy," I said quietly. "I still love her." Tyler nodded, satisfied, and went back to his chicken. Nicole looked down, blinking hard. After dinner, Tyler grabbed my hand and dragged me to his room. It was barely big enough for a twin bed and a small desk, but he'd made it his own. Crayon drawings covered one wall, and there, leaning in the corner, was the fishing rod I'd given him in July, a simple spinning rod with a red and white bobber still attached. "See," he said proudly. "I keep it right there so I remember." "Remember what?" "That you always keep your promises." My throat tightened. I crouched to his level. "I'll always keep my promises to you, Tyler. Always." He threw his arms around my neck. Over his shoulder, I saw Nicole standing in the doorway, one hand pressed to her mouth. When we came back out, Emily had set out a small chocolate cake with 8 candles, Tyler's half-birthday. We sang badly, and Tyler closed his eyes and blew them all out in one breath. I asked what he'd wished for. He shook his head solemnly. "Can't tell or it won't come true." But Nicole's eyes met mine, and I knew we'd both wished for the same thing. After cake, Emily stepped onto the balcony for a phone call. Tyler sprawled on the couch, half asleep, chocolate frosting on his chin. Nicole poured 2 mugs of coffee and handed me one. We stood side by side in the kitchen. "I need to say something," she said quietly. "Okay." She took a breath. "Emily tried to warn me 2 years ago when Trevor first asked me to help with financial stuff. She told me it didn't feel right. And I shut her out. I shut both of you out." Her voice cracked. "Tonight before you got here, I apologized to her. I told her I was sorry for not believing her, for choosing him over her, over you." She looked at me, eyes red. "And I need to say it to you too, Dad. I'm sorry for all of it." "It's a start," I said. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Then she walked to the bookshelf and pulled something from the bottom shelf. She came back holding a wooden picture frame about 8 by 10 inches, handmade light oak, simple and smooth. Inside was a photograph I hadn't seen in years, me holding Nicole. When she was maybe 5, both of us laughing. Margaret had taken it at a park in Round Rock. Burned into the bottom edge in small block letters were the words, "Thank you, Dad, for never giving up." Nicole. I stared at it, vision blurring. "Nicole, I made it in a woodworking class at the community center," she said softly. "I wanted you to have it, to remember that I'm trying." I set the frame down and pulled her into a hug. She stiffened, then collapsed against me, shoulders shaking. I held her the way I used to when she was small. "I know you are," I whispered. "I see it, sweetheart." When I left a little after 9, Tyler was asleep on the couch, and Emily was covering him with a blanket. Nicole walked me to the door, arms wrapped against the December chill. "Merry Christmas, Dad." "Merry Christmas, Nicole." I drove home through quiet streets, strung with colored lights, the wooden frame on the passenger seat. When I got back to my house in Round Rock, I walked into the living room, turned on the lamp, and placed the new frame on the bookshelf next to the photograph of Margaret in her wedding dress, the one I'd kept there for 4 years. 2 women I loved. 2 parts of my life. And for the first time in 18 months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we were all going to be okay. The balloons I'd hung from the porch railing kept drifting sideways in the December breeze, bobbing against the white siding of my house in Round Rock. It was the last Saturday of the year, and I'd invited everyone over for Tyler's almost birthday party. His real birthday wouldn't be until March, but I had something to give him that couldn't wait. Emily arrived first, carrying a casserole dish. Arthur pulled up behind her with a 6-pack of root beer. Evelyn came next, a plate of cookies in her arms. Danny Miller, my 19-year-old apprentice, showed up in his beat-up Ford, a wrapped box under his arm. And then Nicole arrived, holding Tyler's hand. She looked stronger. Her hair was down her sweater, a soft gray, and when she met my eyes, she gave me a small, genuine smile. Tyler let go and sprinted toward me. "Grandpa, is there cake?" "Of course there's cake," I said, catching him in a hug. He grinned and darted inside. We gathered in the living room. Arthur and Danny debated the Cowboys' playoff chances. Evelyn set out her cookies. Emily and Nicole stood side by side in the kitchen, their voices low and comfortable. I watched it all, warmth spreading through my chest. Tyler sat cross-legged on the floor, tearing into Danny's gift, a beginner's multimeter. His eyes went wide. "What was this, for testing circuits?" Danny crouched beside him. "Yep. You can check voltage, resistance, everything. Your grandpa says you've been asking good questions." Tyler looked up at me, face glowing. "Can we use it together, Grandpa?" "Anytime you want, buddy." After presents, I brought out the cake, a simple sheet cake with blue frosting, and "Happy Almost Birthday, Tyler" piped across the top. We sang badly, and Tyler closed his eyes, made a wish, and blew out all 9 candles in one breath. Once the cake was eaten, I caught Tyler's eye and tilted my head toward the back door. He followed me onto the small patio where 2 folding chairs sat facing the winter bare yard. The sun was low, casting long shadows. I'd left a small wooden box on one of the chairs that morning, a box I'd kept hidden for 18 months. Tyler looked at it, then at me. "What's that, Grandpa?" I picked up the box and sat down, gesturing for him to take the other chair. He climbed up, legs swinging. "Ile Onken," I said slowly. "Do you remember the watch I told you about? The one I was going to give you when you turned 18. His eyes went wide. "The Omega, that's the one." I handed him the box. His small hands trembled as he lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, was the 1985 Omega Seamaster stainless steel black dial, the second hand ticking steadily. Sunlight caught the crystal and threw a tiny rainbow across Tyler's face. "Grandpa," he whispered, "it's beautiful." "See, I wore that watch for 30 years, I said. "Through jobs, through good days and bad ones. Your grandma Margaret gave it to me the year you were born, and I always planned to give it to you when you were old enough to understand what it meant." He looked up, confused. "But I'm not 18 yet." "No." You're not. But I've been thinking about what it means to be old enough, and I think you've already proven you're mature enough to understand what really matters. This watch doesn't just tell time, Tyler. It represents something bigger: family loyalty, keeping your promises. And you've shown me, especially this past year, that you already understand those things. His lip quivered. Really? Really? I lifted the watch from the box and held it out. This belongs to someone who knows how to value family, and that's you, buddy. Tyler took the watch with both hands, staring at it. Then he set it carefully on his lap, threw his arms around me, and started to cry. Not sad tears, the kind that come when something matters so much you can't hold it in. I'll keep it forever, Grandpa, he choked out. I promise, forever. I held him tight, one hand on the back of his head, and closed my eyes. Over his shoulder, through the screen door, I saw Nicole standing just inside. Her hand was pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Our eyes met. She mouthed 2 words. Thank you. I nodded. Later, after the guests had gone and the house had settled into evening quiet, Tyler sat beside me on the couch, wearing the Omega on his wrist. It was far too big for him. The band hung loose, but he refused to take it off. In his lap was a library book about electrical circuits. "Yeah, Grandpa," he said, not looking up. "Yeah, bud. When I grow up, I want to be an electrician, like you." I felt something catch in my throat. Yeah, I want to help people fix things, and maybe I could work with you someday, at Brennan Electrical. I rested a hand on his shoulder. "I'd like that, Tyler. I'd like that a lot." Arthur appeared from the kitchen with 2 mugs of coffee. He set one beside me and leaned close. "You did the right thing, Charles," he said quietly. "Margaret would be proud." "You think so? I know so." He clapped me on the shoulder and headed back to the living room. After everyone had left and Tyler had finally gone to bed in the guest room, still wearing the watch, I sat alone in the darkened living room. On the bookshelf, Margaret's wedding photo sat beside the wooden frame Nicole had given me at Christmas. I reached out and touched the edge of Margaret's frame. "I did it, sweetheart," I whispered. "Our family is healing." The house was quiet. Outside, a car passed its headlights, sweeping briefly across the wall. I sat there a while longer, the weight of the past 18 months settling like snow, heavy but clean. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. I stood in the small workshop at the back of Brennan Electrical, watching Danny Miller strip insulation off a length of 12-gauge wire. Outside, December, rain drummed against the metal roof. 3-phase wiring, I said, pointing to the junction box. Black, red, blue. Test twice, connect once. Danny nodded, focused. He was 19 now, steady and reliable. Brennan Electrical wasn't what it used to be. We were down to 10 employees, but every one of them was someone I trusted. Evelyn Sanders still ran the books at 62 sharp as ever. We didn't chase big contracts anymore. Just small jobs, residential work, the kind where you knew your clients by name. And I didn't work 60 hours a week anymore. 30, maybe 35. Every Saturday belonged to Tyler. Nicole had finished her accounting certificate in October. She didn't come back to Brennan Electrical. Neither of us thought that was a good idea, but Philip Hartman hired her as a junior accountant at his law firm. The pay was modest, but she was happy. I could see it in her eyes when she picked up Tyler on Sundays. Trevor never came back to Texas. Emily told me he'd remarried in Arizona. I didn't ask for details. That chapter was closed. Emily stopped by often now. She and Nicole had truly mended things. I'd seen them laughing together at Thanksgiving, sharing wine on my porch, while Tyler chased fireflies. Arthur Johnson came by every Friday for coffee, even though he'd retired 6 months ago. 2 old men with bad knees and long memories talking about everything and nothing. One Friday in late December, Nicole brought Tyler to the workshop. He was wearing the Omega too big for his wrist, but he refused to take it off. He walked straight to the workbench. "Grandpa," he said, "can I learn to be an electrician with you?" I looked at Nicole. She nodded, smiling. I reached into the supply cabinet and pulled out a pair of small yellow work gloves. I handed them to Tyler. "Welcome to the family business, buddy." He slipped them on, grinning. Nicole stepped closer and took my hand. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, "for not giving up on us." I squeezed her hand. Family doesn't give up on each other. We just need time sometimes. That evening, I sat on my porch in Round Rock coffee going cold in my hand. Tyler was in the yard, the omega glinting on his wrist in the fading light. Nicole sat beside me, quiet. I thought about that Father's Day morning 18 months ago. Walking away from the party, keys in hand, not looking back. I didn't regret it. It was the only decision I could have made. I'd lost 18 months. I'd lost $180,000. I'd lost trust, certainty, the comfort of thinking I knew my own daughter. But I'd found something: two boundaries: self-respect. The knowledge that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and love didn't mean surrender. Nicole hadn't fully earned back my trust yet. Maybe she never would, not completely. But she was trying. Every day she was trying. I thought of Margaret's letter. Forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you. She'd been right. Tyler was the reason I'd chosen mercy, not because Nicole deserved it, but because Tyler deserved a whole family. And maybe in giving him that, I'd become whole again too. Tyler looked up and waved. I waved back. The watch on his wrist caught the last sunlight, a brief flash of silver. My father had worn that watch. I'd worn it. And now Tyler would carry it forward. That was the real legacy, not the company, not the money. It was the lesson I'd learned the hardest way. Know when to walk away, and know when to come back. I took a sip of cold coffee and smiled. If you're reading this, and you're the one holding everything together, the job, the family, the weight of everyone's expectations, remember, sometimes the only way people learn your value is when you stop carrying them. You're not selfish for protecting yourself. You're teaching them the lesson that words never could. Sometimes walking away is the most loving thing you can do. Looking back on this family story, I see a man who gave everything: his time, his trust, his company, without asking if anyone valued it. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're locked out of your own life to realize you've been invisible. This is one of those grandpa stories that taught me three things. First, boundaries aren't cruelty, they're survival. Second, forgiveness doesn't mean letting people walk over you again. Third, sometimes the people you love most need to lose you before they learn to love you back. God gives us free will, but He also gave us the wisdom to know when to stay and when to walk away. I believe He walked with me through those 18 months, not to change Nicole, but to change me. Every family story carries lessons, and mine isn't unique. It's for anyone carrying a weight no one else sees. If you're the one holding everything together, hear this. You're not selfish for protecting yourself. These grandpa stories exist so younger generations don't repeat our mistakes. I share these grandpa stories because the best inheritance isn't money, it's wisdom. And every family story deserves an ending where everyone finds their way home. Thank you for walking with me to the end of this journey. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if you found yourself in Charles's situation, facing betrayal from your own family? Your perspective matters, and I'm here to listen. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing so you won't miss the next one. A gentle reminder, while inspired by real-life dynamics and social themes, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this content isn't your cup of tea, feel free to explore other videos that might suit your taste better.